Inspiring interviews with today's top landlords. This is the Rental Income Podcast. And now, Dan Lane.
Jessie, I always hear that Airbnbs are so easy and you can make lots of money. But in your case, that didn't really work out. What happened?
There is definitely so much income potential with short-term rentals, but in my case, this was my first rodeo. I feel like I did all my due diligence and it just didn't play out quite as well as I expected.
Things didn't work out and Jessie ended up selling the property. And on today's episode, we're going to see if we can figure out what went wrong. Was Jessie not doing things right, or is this just a case of bad luck? We'll get to the bottom of it and figure it out. Now, what I think is interesting is that Jessie sold the property to another real estate investor, and things are working out for him. So what we're going to do is a two-part series. Today, we'll talk to Jessie and figure out why things didn't go right. And on Thursday, I'm going to do a bonus episode, and we'll talk to the person that bought the property and see what's different for him and see why the property is working out for him. So let's take a really quick break. We'll thank our sponsors. We'll come right back and we'll talk to Jessie Dillon from Massachusetts. As a rental property owner, you know that things are going to break from time to time. Things like the dishwasher, the refrigerator, maybe you'll have a leaking pipe, whatever it is. I want to let you know about a cost-effective way that I've been using to protect myself from big repair bills. It's Armadillo. Armadillo covers the cost of repairs and replacements for when your systems and appliances break down. My favorite part of Armadillo is that when something comes up, I can use my own repair person and Armadillo will pay me back over Venmo, or I can use one of their vetted pros to handle the repair quickly. It's very affordable. Plans start at just $29.99 per month, and you can customize your plan to cover everything you need. Armadillo has a special offer just for our listeners. You can take 10% off your plan by going to armadillo.one/RIP. That's Armadillo, ARMADILLO.one.ONE/RIP. That's armadillo.one/RIP. I know I'm really busy. I'm sure you are too. And the last thing that I want to do with my free time is go to the grocery store, shop for food, and then take it home and prep meals. But at the same time, I still want to eat healthy. And that's why I've been using Factor. Factor is great. Every week they send me a big box that has all my meals for that week. Everything is freshly prepared. Nothing is frozen. The only thing that I need to do is heat it up and then dinner is ready. I love the variety. They have lots of different options you can pick from, so you're not going to get sick of eating the same meals over and over and over again. Everything is dietitian approved and ready to eat in just 2 minutes. Head to factormeals.com/RIP50 and use code RIP50 to get 50% off. That's code RIP50 at factormeals.com/RIP50 to get 50% off.
Rental Income Podcast.
Jessie, so let's see if we can figure out what went wrong with this property. So tell me about the area. What's the area like that the property is in?
So this is, I would call it a lakes and mountains region. It's definitely a drivable market. People wouldn't necessarily fly out to come here, but a lot of people from all around New England drive to this area for summer vacations, for skiing and snowboarding. So it's definitely like a more economical vacation spot.
Is it year round that you have people going there all the time?
It's much, much busier in the summer, but there are attractions that will bring people to this area in the winter, like skiing, snowboarding, snowmobiling, that sort of thing.
Okay. So it's not year round that 12 months you're going to book it, but you've got plenty of opportunities for bookings throughout the year.
Correct.
Okay. Awesome. Now tell me about the property.
So the property, it's in an HOA. I know that's something that scares a lot of short-term rental investors, but a tip that I had learned was if the HOA fee is really low, then the HOA most likely isn't trying to control too much of what you do at the property. And this fee was really, really low. There's lots of other short-term rentals in that HOA also. So it's in an HOA. It's a quick walk from the biggest lake in New Hampshire. It's a single family home, kind of like a chalet style. And there's 3 bedrooms, 2 full bathrooms, and a bonus room in the basement.
Okay. So it sounds like a nice house. Was it in good condition when you bought it?
Yeah, it's definitely not the most like luxurious short-term rental in the world, but for someone who's going to more of a wooded area, it's definitely updated.
Okay. Now, appearance is so important with a vacation rental. Did you have it furnished nicely?
Yeah, and I actually furnished it myself, and I really liked that process. One thing I think I sort of fumbled on was I didn't make it a very unique stay, and I think that's what's really killing it on Airbnb right now is those unique stays. So to make just a regular old single family home in an HOA unique, I think I maybe would have had to go more above and beyond with the decor.
Like, what could you have done? Like, what are people looking for today?
I think people are really looking for Instagrammable stays. I don't know for sure that the type of guest coming to this area is as dead set on that, but
Yeah.
I think accent walls would have made a difference. I think providing a golf cart and bicycles would have made a big difference. But, these are all things that in retrospect, maybe I would have done from the beginning. But there's also liability concerns with adding those things. So
Sure.
I was worried about it.
Okay, so it sounds like it's a nice place. You're in a good area. You've got a nice house. It's furnished good. Now, as far as marketing it, did you have professional pictures taken?
I did. And I also had a couple influencers go up and do lifestyle photo shoots with photographers. So I got a lot of really good photos from that. Maybe not photos that landed as well on Airbnb and would have landed better on, say, Instagram if I was going to go all in with an Instagram marketing strategy for the property, which I was not willing to do.
Right. And did you have lots of information in the description? I guess, did you have a good description written out?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
And when I say we, me and my virtual assistant, Kayla, she's my right-hand man. She does so much for both of my businesses. We put so much into learning how to optimize your listing. And, we had every system and process in place as far as ranking high on Airbnb, which we did. We were always on the first page.
Okay. And so your pricing was competitive?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
So we use Price Labs, and there's so many different settings that you can choose from in there, but we just basically automated it to like competitive pricing.
Okay.
Tried to always be a little cheaper.
And as far as the platforms, you were on Airbnb. Did you have it listed anywhere else?
Yeah, we also listed on VRBO.
Okay, so I mean, it sounds really good to me. It sounds like you're doing everything right. And you mentioned that you did a lot of research. Like you didn't just run out and buy this property. You had looked at the numbers, and on paper, this property looked good.
Yeah, I'm a numbers person. And on paper, this property, using every different STR analysis tool that I could find and all the ones that, the top STR influencers use, everything said that this property should have been having a net profit of like $6,000 a month. And it definitely did in the summer, but I think there were a couple fatal flaws here, and it was that, a lot of these tools were using data from 2020 when there was an influx of people going to places like this, and there wasn't nearly as much competition.
Right.
And another fatal flaw was that I didn't choose a very unique stay. and I chose a property with high overhead. So there really wasn't a lot of room for error. Like it was going to be easy to lose money on it. And then third was, it's very weather dependent. So a lot of the people who come up in the winter, they're coming up for ice fishing, skiing, snowboarding. And it was a very, very mild winter and the lake didn't freeze over completely. So that kind of kept a lot of the winter crowd away. And this property wasn't necessarily close enough to the ski and snowboarding resorts that are most popular.
Huh. So when you're looking at the data, when you're looking at the numbers on the tools that are helping you determine if this is a good property or not, can you filter out some of that pandemic stuff? Like, can you exclude 2020 and 2021 when there was just a huge influx of people renting Airbnbs?
None of the tools that I had used let you choose specific years to look at. That probably would have been really helpful.
Yeah.
I was trying to, be as conservative as possible with my numbers. And I'm definitely a numbers person. Like I really go deep into the deal analysis. And people talk about the Airbnb bust. And I definitely think that in some areas, it has gotten significantly harder to profit from short-term rentals. I don't think that's true for everywhere, but I think some areas, have gotten really saturated.
So do you think it's the demand that's down, that just less people are doing Airbnb stays, or is that there's just too many people that got into this and the market is just oversaturated?
I think it's a little bit of both. And it's hard to say the market's oversaturated because there's, thousands and thousands of markets. And there's going to be tons that are not oversaturated. But also, I wonder sometimes if some part of this has to do with there are a lot of guests who have kind of been turned off by Airbnb in the last year. Just with, excessive cleaning fees or checkout instructions. So I think a growing number of guests have become frustrated with that platform, and that could have something to do with it.
Sure. Now, there's other properties in the area that are similar type properties to yours, right? Like you weren't the only one nearby.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot that are pretty similar. I would say even just in the HOA, there was probably 3 comparable properties. And when I would look at, on these analytics sites, I would look at how they're doing, and they were always doing exactly the same as me. So
Wow.
I didn't really, I was hoping that maybe I was just doing something wrong, but everyone was kind of doing the same as me.
Yeah.
I think maybe people who have been hosting in that area for years and years and years maybe knew better than I to expect a lot less traffic throughout the winter.
Yeah. Well, let's take a look at some numbers and see how this all shaked out. So what did you pay for the property?
So I paid $450.
Okay. And then as far as your mortgage payment, your taxes, insurance, principal, interest, how much was your mortgage payment every month?
$29.49.
Okay. And then, I assume you've got other expenses, utilities, internet, cleaning. How much did those expenses come out to be every month?
Everything turned out to be around $3,300 to $3,500 a month. So if we brought in at least that much a month before cleaning fees, then we would at least break even.
Okay. Now, as far as the revenue, with it being seasonal, what was the range of revenue that you were getting, say, on a good month and on a bad month?
On a good month, we could easily have made up to $16,000, $18,000 in gross revenue, and that includes cleaning fees. On a bad month, we could easily have made as little as $1,500, $2,000.
Okay. But there was never a month where you had nothing going on. You were always bringing in some revenue.
Yeah, I would say every month we had at least a couple cheap stays.
Okay. So then how did it work out number wise? So you've got this range of good months and bad months, but when you look at it over a year, did you lose money, make money, or break even?
Looking at it over a year, I probably broke even, but I think, I got into this property. I think I purchased it like in May of 2022, and our first guest was the very end of June. So I got started right away in the great season. So right off the bat, I had, a few months of these super, super high net profit months.
Mm-hmm.
And I just really wasn't prepared to weather the storm for the off season. So even though we did so well right out the gate throughout the summer, I just didn't plan to be losing money.
Right. So did you know enough to, like, in those good months where you're making 16,000, did you know enough to say, let's not touch that money, let's just put that aside in case things get slow? Or were you like, hey, this is great, we brought in 16,000, we have 3,400 in expenses, we're killing it?
I don't really remember. I honestly think that I just didn't expect the winter to be as bad.
Yeah.
I think I did kind of just let most of that profit from the high season sit there because I wanted to build up my reserves after spending all the money on buying the property. But yeah, throughout the winter it was too much I went back and forth on selling a lot because I was like, even just breaking even on a rental property, you're still getting the debt pay down, you're still getting appreciation.
Mm-hmm.
I was still getting the tax benefits of owning a short-term rental. But I realized, how much effort we had to put in and how much mental space this property was taking up, because running a short-term rental, even though my assistant did almost all the work, it still took up a lot of headspace. There was always fires to put out, and I was just like, do I really want this taking up headspace just to break even when my big goals are cash flow right now? So could I sell and take that money and put it somewhere else where it'll throw off more cash flow for me? Probably.
Now, did you think about changing this over to a long-term rental? Would that have worked numbers wise? Like, could you have rented it out on a long-term basis, or maybe even like a midterm basis?
Midterm rental would have been good for the winter, but there just is not a huge demand for that in that area. It's not close to any medical facilities. I did get a couple inquiries from insurance companies, like people who, they had to rebuild something with their house and they needed a place to stay. I did get a couple inquiries, but there wasn't enough flow to have that be like a sustainable. And the numbers for long-term rental would not have worked unless maybe I did a rent-to-own tenant, which I did consider. I kind of put it out there, and there just really wasn't enough serious interest for that either.
All right, so you reached a breaking point. You said, I'm going to sell this house. I just got to get out of this. Walk me through selling the property. How did that work out?
So I first had listed for sale by owner, and I got a million calls from agents. I got a million inquiries from, tire kickers. And I got a call from an agent that, we hit it off. So I was like, if it's still listed for sale by owner in a month, then give me a call and I'll list with you guys. But I also got a call from someone who specializes in buying on creative financing. And, being an investor, I'm really familiar with creative financing. I've always been interested in it. So I knew the drill, and I had said, same thing, give me a call in a month and I'll consider it. So a month went by. I didn't really get any serious offers being listed for sale by owner. And I had decided to list with that agent, but I had said, if we can't get an offer at asking, is it okay if I, end our listing agreement and take that creative offer? And they said yes. So ultimately I couldn't get an offer for what I wanted for the property. and I wasn't willing to take something significantly lower. The only offer I got was like 20,000 lower, and I wasn't willing to do that. So I actually turned around and I took the creative offer. So I ended up selling on creative financing, and selling that way turned a break-even deal into a deal where at the end of the day, I'll profit 75,000.
Wow. Wow, that's awesome. So how is the creative deal structured?
So the creative deal, so the buyer did not put any money down. He took over making payments on my loan on my behalf, and he pays me monthly towards my equity. In 3 years, he'll have to do a refinance and pay me off and pay off my original loan. So in 3 years, there'll be a balloon payment and my original loan will be cleared out.
So how much does he pay you every month?
800.
800 above the mortgage.
Correct.
So he pays your mortgage payment and you pocket $800.
Yes.
Okay. So, that's really good. I mean, so you took a property that wasn't making any money as an Airbnb, and now you're making $800 a month without having to do any work at all.
But yeah, all I have to do is my assistant logs in every month, double checks that the mortgage payment was made and that the payment to me was made. And, that's it. So I think at the end of the day, on the day that I sold, I was probably about 75,000 in the hole. So that was like the down payment, the furnishings. And I think, from day one to closing, I had lost like a couple thousand cash flow wise throughout the year.
Okay. So yeah, you're making that back. Now, as far as like the risk, like what if in 3 years the buyer can't refinance? Who maybe the house doesn't appraise, or maybe he can't get the financing. Like what would happen then? Or is that a risk that the deal could fall apart?
So we actually wrote into the contract that if for any reason the buyer cannot refinance out and make the balloon payment and clear my old mortgage by the 3-year mark, there will be a $5,000 fee added to the balloon payment to extend for another year. And I wanted to put that in there so that we didn't have to worry about renegotiating anything at that time. And if it did have to be extended inflation-wise, it would make sense for me to delay that payment.
Sure. And I guess, if you look at it and if the deal, worst case, were to fall apart in 3 years, at least you were making $800 a month. And now you've got the house back, and who knows, maybe in 3 years it would be more profitable if you turned it into an Airbnb again, if it couldn't be sold.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. And, most likely though, everything will go according to plan. And so I'm making $800 a month for 3 years, and then my balloon payment will be about $120. So at the end of the day, I'll net a positive 75,000 on the whole deal.
It sounds like Jessie was doing all the right things, but there just wasn't a big enough market to make this property work as an Airbnb. But what I love about real estate is there's not just one way to do anything. And another investor saw an opportunity with this property that Jessie didn't see, and he's found a way to turn this property around. And on the second part of this episode, we're going to talk to the investor that bought this property from Jessie, and we're going to see what he did. Like, how did he find a way to make money on this property when Jessie wasn't able to? So we'll talk to him. That episode will either be out, if you're listening to this show live, it'll be out on Thursday. If you're listening to this at some point in the future, you can check out that episode right now. It's part 2, the very next episode. Also, if anybody wants to follow Jessie on Instagram, you can check her out. I've got a link to her Instagram at rentalincomepodcast.com/episode 433. Thank you so much for checking out the podcast today. I'll see you on the next episode. My name is Dan Lane, and this has been the Rental Income Podcast.